Hi, I'm Loretta and this is my sister
Sharon.
We are founders of the plant-based retreat, The Detox Barn, and we're also a comedy double act. I know, funny vegans. Shoot me now.
9 years ago, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease and got myself better using a plant-based diet. Since then, I've just fallen in love with living well.
I retrained as a natural vegan chef, and each week we'll be interviewing experts in the wellness industry, as well as sharing the highs and lows of trying to live well as single mums living together with our 2 kids.
How well have we lived this week? Well,
Sharon has news.
I have news for the people. I have been diagnosed with ADHD. What a surprise.
Who hasn't?
But I have battled with it, and there's part of me, you know, as you said, who hasn't? I feel a little bit embarrassed because, like, everyone's been diagnosed now, and it's just a bit like, oh, you're trying to jump on the bandwagon almost. I mean, it's actually a diagnosis, but I feel a bit embarrassed about it. I also question it because if I have got it, which I have,
Well, she said you were off the scale, didn't she?
yeah, it served me quite well. I mean, I did push back a lot. I mean, the reason why I got it tested is because basically people kept diagnosing me.
Every retreat we ran, they'd be like, off the scale, ADHD.
Have you had a test yet?
Are you patient zero? I think you might have created ADHD.
And throughout the assessment, I sort of kept going, but is that normal? I mean, yes.
Well, we were discussing what is ADHD? What is lack of focus? What is forgetfulness?
I've got chronic distraction.
What is...
But haven't we all?
What is, like, basically, me and Sharon don't like boring shit.
Yeah. I mean, just to go back to that point, with the assessor, I kept going, is this normal? Isn't that just a personality? And they were like going, no, it's not. That's not normal.
It's really abnormal.
But
that's what I'm saying.
And then I'm not sure I've got it. And they were like, well, you've scored off the scale. Started to look at our lives, and we started to go through things that could be classic, you know, ADHD traits.
Yeah.
And we did start to go, is that normal? So for instance, we started to go, okay, things like I would go into a restaurant. If we go into a restaurant and it's busy and we look around and nobody's eating, we'll be like, shit.
Get your order in quick.
We need to get this order in quick, because if we don't, it might mean that we might have to wait. And waiting
for their starters, for their main course, they're not even on dessert. We need to get this order in as soon as possible.
Because the outcome is we might need to wait a bit, and waiting is painful.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we lose the dog's lead so often that we've actually started using car to school tie. Is that normal?
Is that normal?
Is that normal?
I don't use it every day, but if I'm desperate...
we walk around with this weird purple tie literally tied round the dog's neck. Is that normal?
Yeah, if I can't find a hairband, I just grab a pair of knickers. You know, the leg of the knickers, quite elasticy. Tie up my hair. Is that normal?
Is that normal? I went to... Well, I'm actually slightly embarrassed about this one because I'm not sure if this is veering towards dementia. But I went to Waitrose, went into the shop, was rushing around to get a few bits. Then I was like, oh my God, I've lost the keys, running everywhere. And our keys have got this bright orange purse because we're so paranoid about losing them. I couldn't find them anywhere. So I thought, right, I'll go back to the car. They must have dropped them, or they must be in the car. And I go back to the car. The door's open.
The car's running.
The car is running. The engine is running. I've literally pulled in, jumped out the car, literally ran into Waitrose, come back. It was nice and warm.
I mean, is that normal?
But that scared me, and I took a while to share that with you, didn't I?
Yeah, dementia.
I was like really worried that she's like going to think there's something really, really chronically wrong with me.
I think it's this chronic distraction.
The other thing I do, right, and I'm not sure how normal this is, but I missed the train. It's an overground train. I was like, shit, missed the train. Okay, I'm going to catch that train. I jumped back on the tube, got to the next stop, ran up the stairs, and jumped on the train that I just missed.
Racing a train.
Euphoric. I was absolutely euphoric. I was like, I did it.
Is that normal to race a train?
And actually, when I was...
Just wait for the next train.
Yeah.
Why race a train?
But it felt so good. There was no time wasted. No time wasted.
Bank cards. I mean, that has always been the bane of my life. I phoned up recently. It's got a bit better because it's all digital now. But anyways, I phoned up recently and I just said, I haven't got my bank card. I cancelled it a week ago. It hasn't come through the post. She started looking through. She went, oh, right, okay. Can you tell me the last 4 digits? I was like, I don't really know the last 4 digits. She went, right. She said, I'm on the system here and there seems to be quite a few cards. I was like, oh, yeah, I've kind of lost a few over the years. She went, right. She was like, you've got 45 cards. You've lost your card 45 times.
Is that normal?
I was like, have I? Oh, who loses their card 45 times? So I start questioning all these things, and I was asking the examiner, is it an examiner? And I was, no. And I'd be like, is that normal? And he was sort of going, no. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Like, what does ChatGPT say? Right, okay, I'm going to actually ask ChatGPT, is this normal personality traits, or is this ADHD, or what the hell is it?
Is it normal to keep asking ChatGPT things? I said, well, we ask ChatGPT everything. The other day we booked the cinema, and then we were like, oh, it's getting a bit late and we all wanted to get into our pyjamas. So we asked ChatGPT, should we go to the cinema?
And it was a really good answer.
Very good answer.
If you're feeling tired.
So just read out the ones.
I'm just going to read out some of the things that we shared with Chat to see, is it normal or not? Okay, using a school tie as a dog's lead. This can be ordinary improvisation. It's just a problem solving in the moment. People do make do. Does anyone else do that?
No. I like the fact that they're like making us feel better about our crazy antics.
Leaving house keys and car keys in the front door overnight. That's less about normal versus not, and more about attention and awareness. Lots of people have done this once or twice when tired, distracted or overloaded, but it can be a sign that your mind wasn't fully tracking consequences at the time.
Right.
Missing a train and deciding to race it via the tube, then feeling ecstatic when you succeed. This one stands out because of the emotional intensity. Right. The behaviour itself isn't
feel nervous,
dangerous or unheard of, but the ecstasy, I don't think it was ecstasy.
Oh no, I thought so, please, Sharon.
The surge, I can do anything.
Yes.
Feeling is worth paying attention to.
I related to Trump in that moment.
The key question...
Are we taking over Greenland soon?
The key question... Don't joke about that.
I'm joking.
The key question...
Obviously joking. Please don't cut that bit out and make it into a reel and then I get cancelled.
The key question isn't, is this normal? It's, is this typical for you? Is it happening more than once? Does it come with a feeling usually energised, driven, impulsive or less aware of risk? Are you sleeping less? I think he thinks you're mad. Thinking faster or feeling unusually confident or wired.
Oh, he thinks I'm
bipolar.
Yeah, bipolar and...
Many people have occasional days like this. Stress, adrenaline relief, novelty. But when these moments cluster together, especially with forgetfulness plus indecisiveness, elevated mood, it can be a sign you're running a bit hot.
Ooh, what does that mean?
That doesn't mean something's wrong.
Oh, okay.
It does mean it's worth checking in with yourself though, rather than brushing it off. Oh dear, he's trying to be diplomatic about saying you're mad, basically.
Yeah.
Leaving the keys in a running car, that's not just forgetfulness, that's
madness.
A break in awareness.
Yes.
People do this very rarely.
Yes, I only did it once, please.
Usually when extremely tired.
I was tired. Well, I don't know if I was tired.
No, you weren't.
I was very busy.
Distressed or overloaded.
Yes.
Repeatedly losing bank cards. 1 or 2 over lifetime. Common. Multiple. Repeatedly. That points to executive function strain. A memory. Follow through. 45 cards? No answer.
Mental.
Check
in with yourself. How are you feeling?
Right.
Basically, we're a bit mad. But on a serious note, going back to the diagnosis and the fact that you feel a bit embarrassed because everyone's got ADHD and...
What have you got? What have you got that's ADHD?
Everyone's got ADHD. But actually, I think...
Have you lost 45 bank cards?
No. Do you use a tie to walk your dog? No.
Have you left a car running? No. Do you race trains?
No.
But on a more serious note, I do actually think it's not an overdiagnosis, and I do think diagnoses are actually really important. The classroom is set up to support atypical children, and if you're not that, life can be very, very tricky. The playground to prison pipeline is massive in ADHD. This isn't something to be shuck off and go, oh, it's cool, it's cool, it's the creative thinkers that have got ADHD. They really, really, really do struggle. And then I've had first-hand experience of it, and I know what it's like to be that kid in that classroom.
And also just to say that with the right support and the right mentoring and the right facilities to help ADHD people grow and thrive, they can do the most brilliant, creative, amazing things. They're the best entrepreneurs, that can do so many amazing things. But without it, as Sharon said, you know, the playground to prison trajectory is quite extraordinarily high.
Can I just point something out?
Yes.
You said ADA, you said ADH, and you forgot to say the D.
The D, yes. Is that normal?
Is that normal? Gabbling.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Anyway, this week's podcast, very, very excited to share. We are going to be sitting down with Will Porter.
So it's for anybody that's interested in alcohol, what it does to us, what happens when we drink, why do we drink too much. It's very analytical and it will really help you become aware. And that's the big thing with alcohol, to become aware of what's making us do the things that we do. This episode is sponsored by us, Gavin Sisters, and our very first product, Funky Coffee. It's triple
We paid a fortune to sponsor this.
Yeah, we're paying ourselves.
Yeah.
It's triple certified organic Arabica coffee, and it's boosted with potent adaptogens. The health benefits are many, but don't just take our word for it.
Yeah, instead of us banging on about it, we decided to test our coffee out with our guests at the Detox Barn and take a listen to what they have to say.
They're not getting paid.
No one's getting paid here. Let's be honest.
So we just served Funky Coffee at the Detox Barn. What did everybody think?
Coffee is amazing, and it's not bitter, and it tastes like real coffee.
I was very sceptical, but absolutely it was stunning.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And did you find, because you had it yesterday, did you find you had a crash afterwards, or did you feel like you had sustained energy?
Sustained, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
They want to buy shares in the company. Okay, thanks everybody. For our listeners, you can get 10% off. Go to gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code podcast at checkout. In today's episode, we are talking to William Porter, and we're talking about one of our favourite subjects, alcohol. His book, Alcohol Explained, goes into the ins and outs of why we drink and why we can't stop drinking. It's very analytical, and me and Sharon really enjoyed it. William, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, so me and Sharon, as we said just before we started, we are passionate non-drinkers, and we bore people. Well, we try not to go on about it to people that aren't interested, but I found your book really, really fascinating because it really made me think about why it's not people's fault that they're drinking. But before we get into the ins and outs of that, I'd love to ask you, what made you write the book?
So I started drinking and smoking when I was about 14. And as in my late teens, I came across Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And I found it really fascinating because it took just a completely different approach. It was so sort of common sense, practical solution. And I stopped smoking but carried on drinking. And my drinking kind of escalated over the years and got quite unmanageable. And I think really what it was, I just took that same kind of analytical approach and sort of self-analysed while I was drinking. And that's really what ended up being Alcohol Explained.
So did you get to a point where you felt like you were drinking too much and then you went through the analysis then? Because it's quite a critical thing to do when you're in the depths of an alcohol problem.
Yeah, no, I was analysing it throughout my entire drinking experience. And I was... So towards the end, I didn't really like drinking with people. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive because a lot of people, when they're drinking, it's a social thing. But I got to the point where I really just wanted to lock myself away and drink. So a lot of the time, certainly over the last 10, 15 years of my drinking, a lot of it was sort of done on my own. And I was almost just sat there thinking about why I was doing it, what was dragging me in, how I felt after a drink, how I felt a few hours after a drink when I woke up, etc., etc. And I kind of tied in, I suppose, my experience then with researching and analysing and trying to work out what was happening and why.
And so would you say that you were an alcoholic then? I mean, this leads me on to the next question. What is an alcoholic? Would you define yourself as an alcoholic?
Yeah, so I suppose I would have done. It's kind of a difficult question because at no point did I drink every day. So I would drink in binges. But when I started drinking, I would drink constantly. I remember, so when I was drinking, I would wake up in the middle of the night and be unable to get back to sleep. And what I found is having another drink would get me back to sleep okay. So
in the middle of the night?
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Really? Okay.
And then, of course, that opens up a sort of a very unpleasant world where you're then waking up in the morning and having a drink. So when I say I was drinking in binges, I was literally drinking from sort of Friday afternoon throughout, wake up Friday night, Saturday morning in the early hours and drink again, wake up again and literally drink through. And then obviously wake up feeling awful on Sunday and then potentially start drinking again and then running sick on Monday. And then, of course, you're sat at home feeling awful with nothing to do but drink again. So it was kind of, when I say I was a binge drinker, it was literally solid days of drinking.
I mean, that's what's really confusing, isn't it? Because like, what stops, because in your book you sort of talk about people get to a sort of almost an inevitable stage of like then wanting a drink in the morning. But so to talk me through, like, because I think we all define an alcoholic as someone that has a drink in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you wait until 1 o'clock, you might not be defined as an alcoholic. So what is it that's stopping them? So some people, I know a lot of people, and it's very normal, will drink in the evening and might drink quite a lot in the evening, but don't drink during the day. So are they not alcoholics?
So I think it all comes back to what you said originally, is how do you define an alcoholic? Yeah. So in my mind, what I said to myself is, if I can't control what I'm doing, then I've got a problem. And whether you call that alcoholic or whatever, that's definitely what I would do. Okay. So when I started, I would really be incapable of stopping until, like days down the line kind of thing.
So what do you think, like, like the sort of, which is the sort of the middle lane drinker, someone that kind of is drinking a lot, sort of drinking every night, but doesn't see themselves as an alcoholic, but it is a problem. What would you encourage them to understand what is actually going on with their addiction? What is that addiction? Yeah,
so I would encourage them absolutely to understand it, but I'd probably broaden that out and say that anyone drinking probably needs to understand it because, for whatever reason, when we pick up a drink, there's reasons for and against, and actually getting under the skin of it and understanding those reasons really gives you power back to make better decisions, because at the end of the day we can only make good decisions if we've got all the information. If information is missing or incorrect, we're going to be making the wrong decisions.
Because I think that's the thing, that a lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to drink tonight, I'm definitely not going to drink tonight, and then they get home, they've had a hard day, they've, things have spiraled at work, and they get in, they go, oh no, I need a drink. And then they have a drink. And then the next day that repeats and repeats and repeats. So what is going on there? How can you help someone that is their kind of behaviour?
Yeah, so there's a couple of points there. For me, it always comes back to the really basic physiological effect that alcohol has on us. So alcohol is a drug and it's a sedative. So and this is very high level, but it's how I understand it and it's how a lot of people relate to it. A lot of drugs can be divided into either stimulants or sedatives. Mm-hmm. So obviously stimulants are like nicotine and caffeine, and they make you wake up and feel more alert. Whereas sedatives sedate you, they depress you, they inhibit nerve activity, so make you feel more relaxed. So alcohol is a sedative, but what a lot of people, I think, don't quite appreciate is how your brain reacts to it. So the human brain creates and excretes a huge array of different chemicals, drugs and hormones. Things like endorphins and adrenaline. These are naturally occurring chemicals that your brain releases. Now, there's a lot we humans don't understand about this process. But what we do know is the brain works by way of something called homeostasis, which is essentially a balance of all these chemicals, drugs and hormones. So when you introduce alcohol, which is a sedative, your brain tries to counter it. It does it in lots and lots of different ways, but essentially what it's doing, it's becoming overly sensitive so it can work under the sedating effects of the alcohol. But then when the alcohol wears off, that oversensitivity kind of remains for a period. And how I often describe it is, the old-fashioned weighing scales where you've got like a bar in the middle and two baskets hanging off it. So imagine one of those is sedatives and one of them stimulants. If you drink alcohol, you're putting a load into the sedative basket, so it's tipping up. Yeah. So your brain then puts more in the stimulant side to balance it. But then when the alcohol wears off, it tips over. to
Right.
the other way. So
Okay.
even simpler than that, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So whatever sedating effect you get from an alcoholic drink, there's a corresponding feeling of anxiety when it wears off.
Right.
So that's the, if you like, the sort of the chemical side of it. But the other side of it is what I call craving. You know, it's that obsession with something. But it needn't be that like really severe obsession. It can just be a distraction. It's that voice in your head thinking, oh, it would be nice to have a drink at this point, or a cigarette, or whatever it might be. So where we are with alcohol, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people do not drink in the morning.
Yeah.
So let's say they've had a few glasses of wine in the evening. They will wake up the next day and there'll be that residual feeling of anxiety, which is the chemical after effect of the alcohol. If they were to have a drink at that point, they'd feel an awful lot better.
Oh, would it? So would that relieve it?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's drunk the night before waking up the next day, having a drink will feel better.
Even if you've got like a headache and...
Yeah, because the main
It's
thing
the
is
hair
the
of the dog.
anxiety,
Right,
but
yeah.
of course it being an anaesthetic, it will take the edge off the headache and everything.
okay.
So how I sometimes think of it as well is, you know, the memory foam mattresses, where they're kind of flat and you lie on them and you slowly sink into it and then you get up and there's kind of like an indent and it slowly disappears. That's how I sort of imagine the human brain. So if you put something on that memory foam mattress, which is your brain, like a drink, it slowly sinks in. And then when it's gone, there's a void there that needs filling. But the point with alcohol is we don't drink in the morning. It's just not the done thing. So the average drinker will wake up in the morning and they will have that residual anxiety and would feel a lot better for a drink.
We're not recommending this.
No, not at all. But the point is here, they're not craving it because they don't do it. So it doesn't even enter their realm of comprehension.
Psychologically they're not craving
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So they've got the withdrawal there,
Yeah.
and they would feel better for a drink, but they're not thinking, oh, well, should I have a drink? Shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And getting to that kind of obsession stage. They're getting up, showering, going to work, getting the kids ready, whatever. But of course, when they get home in the evening, that's when it's acceptable to have a drink.
Yeah.
So that's where you get... It's almost like, imagine addiction being the chemical, but also the psychological. And it's not until the evening comes where it's okay to have a drink that they get the second aspect, which is that, oh, I could have a drink now.
Yeah.
And then it almost becomes like a placebo because, you know, you get home from a hard day at work, you want to sit, relax, have a nice meal, read a book, watch a box set, whatever. But you're only going to enjoy that and find it relaxing if you're engaged in it, right? If instead of engaging in it, you're taken up with this internal tantrum of I want a drink, I can't have one, blah, blah, blah. And the quickest way to relieve that, of course, is to have a drink.
Yeah.
Because having a drink removes that kind of mental tantrum and allows you to engage in what you were doing in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that the drink starts to become essential to enjoy an evening, for example, when you get in from work. Because if you haven't got the drink, you're just obsessing about the fact that you want one and can't have one.
That's really interesting.
I just want to say, can I just recap? So are you saying that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, alcohol relaxes me.
Yeah.
So it does. So it relaxes you, but at the same time, it then makes you anxious.
Exactly.
And the only way to get rid of that anxiety is to have another drink.
Yes. So actually, two ways to get rid of that feeling.
Yeah.
The superficial way is to have another drink because, of course, that drink wears off and the anxiety comes back. The better way to do it, of course, is to never drink again because after a few days, your brain chemistry gets back to normal.
But when you're in it, you don't see it as anxiety. Do you see what I mean? So
No, it's life. Yeah, it's just life.
Yeah, but when
is...
you have that drink and then you go, oh, you don't think, oh, I'm feeling anxious, I need another drink. You just fancy another drink.
Yeah,
Do you see what I mean?
it comes in quite slowly.
Right.
So alcohol's got a half-life of 5 hours. And what half-life is, it's how long it takes for the drug to drop to half in your bloodstream, basically. So it's quite a long half-life. So it slowly starts to build up over the next sort of 5 hours or so. But most of us become quite accustomed to having another drink. It's usually about 10, 15 minutes. The initial effects start to wear off and we start to want another one. A lot of people don't necessarily understand why they want another one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because it's like, you know, if you're hungry and you eat food, it satisfies you, you don't want any more. Whereas drugs aren't like that because when they wear off, they create that void that you can only fill with another dose of the drug, be it alcohol, nicotine, cocaine, whatever.
But, so, like, I mean, you know, we talked about earlier before we started recording, I think, and we talked a little bit about the sweet spot of drinking, and that's what keeps people from stopping drinking, because they think there's a sweet spot. So, I mean, and I've had this conversation with Sober Dave as well, like to talk about Loretta and I's drinking, which was basically the same. I wasn't a binge drinker, but I was a regular drinker. And most evenings, or I think I've got to a stage of every evening, we would share a bottle of wine. So whether it was with you or my ex-husband, so that's 2.5 glasses.
We were basically drinking too much.
Yeah, we were drinking way too much. So 2.5 glasses a night. But that didn't, you know, when we talked about Alan Carr's book, where it says, we both read the book, How to Cut Back on Drinking, but at the end it says you can't cut back, you need to give up. Would I have spiraled if I hadn't have given up, right? Because in the 10 years, I never sort of started to have another bottle and another bottle and another bottle. I just would kind of want that kind of sedation, basically. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I hated myself for it, because in the morning at 3 o'clock, I got the anxiety. I then would exercise to try and get rid of the slight hangover. It wasn't a crazy hangover, because we are already talking about sort of half a bottle every night. But it didn't spiral worse than that. It still completely affected my life in a really detrimental way, just psychologically and mentally. But are you saying that everybody ends up drinking more and more and more and more and more?
Not everybody, but I think how I would phrase it is it's a natural tendency.
Okay.
So as you drink more, your brain becomes more and more efficient at countering the sedating effects of the alcohol.
So you need more.
You need more to get the same effect.
Yeah.
So, and obviously as it wears off, if you're drinking more, that withdrawal period gets worse. So the natural tendency, because if on day one, say you've never drunk alcohol before and you have a glass of wine and you like the feeling, in 10 years' time, that one glass isn't going to be having the same effect.
Yeah.
You need to have 2 and then 3. It's very normal. And of course, you're talking about a bottle that you're sharing.
Yeah.
So when that bottle's gone, there's a natural tendency there just to stop.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't stop. I'd go and get another bottle, but obviously you held it at that level.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes.
Well, most of the time. Sometimes I think we're a bit like, oh, should we have another? And always really regretted it.
Yeah.
But most of the time it was a bottle of wine. Yeah. And I know that if I had more, I would properly have a hangover. I think I knew the sweet spot for a hangover that wasn't horrendous was 2.5 glasses that I could kind of exercise off in the morning, still get the sedation in the evening, you know. But it didn't get more than that.
And then sometimes we'd have blowout.
Oh, we would at the weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd have that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that
it still robbed me of my peace. Don't get me wrong. The biggest thing, the biggest joy from giving up drinking for me was this lovely sense of peace that I'd have in my heart every day, every night. A lot, you know, nothing can give you that.
No, and I think one of the biggest things, and I think this is where we go back to, you know, what you were talking about before, that sweet spot. Alcohol has a huge effect on sleep, and even 1 or 2 glasses will interrupt our normal sleeping cycle. So just to go into that in a bit of detail, a lot of people think you just fall unconscious, wake up a few hours later and you're good to go. But of course, it's not as simple as that. You go through very specific sleep cycles. And again, it's kind of an emerging area. There's a lot we don't understand about it. But one of the big differentiators between the different sleep cycles is how deeply unconscious you are. So there's something called deep sleep, where, as you'd expect, you're very deeply unconscious. But on the other end of the scale, there's REM sleep, which is where we dream. And when they've monitored people in REM sleep, their brain lights up as almost as if they're fully awake. So it's this really odd stage of sleep where you're almost fully awake.
That's the REM.
REM sleep, where you dream. REM sleep is closely linked to mental health.
Yeah.
So missing out on REM sleep causes depression and anxiety, and you spiral really quickly. Because alcohol is a sedative, it stops you going into REM sleep. So even 1 or 2 drinks will interrupt your sleep cycle. So that's why one of the biggest reported symptoms of a hangover is tiredness, because there's a whole world of difference between alcohol-induced unconsciousness and sleep. They're 2 completely different things. And that's one of the things alcohol does, is robs you of that ability to get that REM sleep. When I was talking about that 5-hour half-life, that's why a lot of people wake up at 2-3 in the morning. It's almost exactly 5 hours after your last drink, because that's when the scales are tipping. That anxiety is starting to kick in. and you can be absolutely exhausted but unable to sleep.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all the stimulants are then knocking around in your system, stopping you from sleeping. And I quite often say to people, drinking alcohol, say you need 8 hours sleep to be at your best, and you sleep from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. Drinking alcohol is like setting an alarm for 3 or 4 in the morning and getting up and drinking a jug of really strong coffee.
Yeah.
It just completely stops you being able to sleep.
So is that you, because that's the anxiety cycle as well. So is that what is causing kind of the fear and the anxiety? Is basically the lack of sleep?
So yeah, there's 2 completely separate processes. So when you drink alcohol, your brain starts to put in adrenaline and cortisol, which is a stress hormone, to counter the alcohol, and that causes anxiety. And then completely separately, it ruins your sleep, which again adds to the overall feeling of feeling awful the next day. Yeah,
because I feel like crap
and
if I don't sleep.
yeah, everyone does. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we do? I mean, it's interesting because when I was like reading the book, and you know, even our kids that are now teenagers, like even my son turned around to me when we were sort of talking about alcohol, and he said, "But you know, you got to admit, must have been fun at a time. We sort of like, it must loosen you up a bit, Mum. You must have been loosened up. He did all this." And I found it really, really like, I get flashbacks to like me being on bars going, whoa, I'm going, well, it can loosen you up. But no, I guess what I'm trying to lead on to is like, what do we do? Because I think we're quite innately shy people. And I think we actually innately find kind of socializing without a drink quite difficult.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about it in the book, and I really resonated with it as well, because we used to always say, even before reading your book, like if you watch kids at a party, you know, the first 5 minutes, they are a bit shy, but then 20 minutes are absolutely fine. And it's not just the sugar. It's not the people go, oh, it's the sugar. It's not the sugar.
No.
They are connecting. And we run sober. We run retreats with no alcohol, and the same thing happens. So on the Friday, you know, they're all strangers in the room. Sometimes it's a little bit quieter, but by the Sunday morning, like they're literally laughing their heads off. Everyone's on really good, and also the environment. They know there's no alcohol, so there's no craving. The context and the environment. But what do we do as humans? This is why a lot of people drink, is that they find it very difficult because they're shy.
Yeah, so I did exactly the same thing. A lot of my drinking was kind of like social anxiety, and I couldn't imagine going out to a party or something and not drinking. And I stopped drinking in 2014. And when I stopped, I kind of knew that I had to stop. It couldn't go on. It was getting more and more unmanageable. And my mindset was, right, I'm not going to drink again. But I just won't enjoy social occasions. I won't enjoy holidays. I won't enjoy parties. I won't enjoy Christmas. And that was it. It was like I'm missing out on this wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And I avoided social occasions as much as I can, but you can't avoid all of them. You know, some of them you have to go
it's
to.
Very lonely life.
Yeah, and I'd sort of go to these things and think, oh, you know, like 3-4 hours I can go home. And what I found was eventually I'd start chatting to someone and I'd kind of forget about drinking or being miserable and get engaged in the conversation. And suddenly I'd find I was enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realised you don't actually need alcohol to enjoy yourself. The dynamic for me going into a social situation is I feel quite nervous and on edge, but as I relax into it, I start to enjoy it. And that's kind of borne out by the science. So you've heard about endorphins, so a naturally occurring chemical that makes you feel really good. And you get endorphins when you exercise, when you eat a healthy meal, if you're hungry. And interestingly, we humans get endorphins when we socialise, but you have to be relaxed and socialising. So the dynamic for me is I go to a social occasion, I feel anxious, but when I start to relax into it, the endorphins kicking and I actually start to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Alcohol provides a kind of a shortcut, because if you're feeling anxious and you take a sedative, it calms it down a bit. So you can get to that enjoyment stage a bit quicker, but you can get there anyway without the alcohol.
Yeah.
And actually, the interesting thing I found when I stopped drinking is I'd enjoy the whole evening feeling good.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was drinking, I might feel good for the first hour or two, but then quite often the mood changes. And it's very interesting if you don't drink to go to a boozy social situation and watch it.
Yeah.
Because the first hour or two, it's all very friendly,
Yeah.
but then beyond that, it starts to get a bit edgy.
Yeah.
And that's where you get kind of like arguments and things kicking off, and it's all a bit unpleasant.
It's miscommunication.
Yes.
People are drunk and they just start to miscommunicate.
Yes.
And that
yeah.
leads me on to this whole concept of it being like a truth drug, which is quite interesting because people often say that, like the truth comes out when you're
the true
drunk.
him or the true her.
Yeah, like what you really felt sort of comes out. So tell us about that, because I really loved your explanation of like how that's not actually the case.
No, so alcohol does two things to us. It makes us feel relaxed and it intoxicates us. So you need to start thinking about those two things. We often just take it as one thing. You know, you get intoxicated and you feel relaxed, but they're two completely separate processes. And what alcohol does, it has a particularly strong intoxicating effect on a part of the brain called the limbic system. The limbic system deals with memory, which is why you'll quite often struggle with memory problems when you're drinking. But the other thing the limbic system does is it dampens emotions. So let's say, for example, you're sober and you knock a coffee cup over and it breaks. You might feel an immediate anger or something, but then the limbic system jumps in and calms everything down. When you've been drinking, because the limbic system becomes basically incapacitated, any emotion that is triggered tends to just run and run and run. So that's why there's this huge correlation between drinking and violent crime, because if people lose their temper, the part of their brain that would ordinarily come in and calm things down isn't working.
Okay.
So when people are drinking, I always say they get the emotional temperament of like a hungry toddler.
Yeah.
And so it's absolute rubbish, that thing about it brings out the real you. It doesn't bring out the real you. It kind of creates an unpleasant version of you that's incapable of controlling your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's when all these things start to come out. So it's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
So it just stops you from regulating how
Exactly.
you'd normally regulate.
Yes.
And it's interesting,
Yeah.
I was thinking, if people, when they talk about, alcohol being harmless, and I don't want to, bash alcohol because people don't like you very much when you do it. But I kind of think, if you went to A&E on a Saturday evening and everyone had taken cocaine, there would be uproar. They're like, look at all these people. These like basically they look insane in A&E at that time of night when they've drank too much and there's fights and there's blood everywhere. You'd go, why are we letting this happen? So I think it's really, really interesting that it's such a socially accepted drug.
It's really interesting, and it's one of those strange dynamics as well, because it's when you start to get under the skin of it and you see these like little anomalies, because you have a tough day at work or an argument with your partner, you're in a bad mood, you naturally reach for a drink to take the edge off it. But we also know that drunk people are really emotionally unstable. So you're upset and you're taking something that in the very short term may take the edge off it, but after a few drinks, that emotion just runs and runs and runs. So you're actually making it worse for reaching for a drink.
Yeah. And so sorry, go on, did you want to?
No, I was just going to say, what would you say to people? I know a lot of people that drink, but they say, but I offset it with working out. What would you say about that?
So that's really quite bad for you. Now, alcohol is a sedative, so you would expect it to decrease your heart rate. But of course, we all know when we have a drink, our heart rate goes up. Okay, which sounds kind of counterintuitive because I say it's a sedative, but that's evidence really of the adrenaline and cortisol that your brain is pumping into the system to counteract the alcohol. And the other thing it does, because it speeds up your heart rate, is put your blood pressure up. So drinking alcohol is doing two things. It's increasing your heart rate and putting your blood pressure up, which is really bad then to exercise on. Because very, very briefly, but obviously when you exercise, your muscles need oxygen and nutrients, and that oxygen and nutrients gets to them via the red blood cells in the blood. Okay, so if you're regularly increasing your heart rate by way of exercise, there's two major changes that happen because your body adapts to it. The red blood cells are taken out of circulation earlier so that their age drops. And the reason that's important is because the younger blood cells can carry more oxygen. And the other thing that happens is there's a greater concentration of red blood cells. So the more you exercise, the more you accelerate your heart rate through exercise, basically the more oxygen you've got in your blood, which is why fitter people will have a lower resting heart rate because the oxygen and everything's getting round because the blood's so rich in oxygen. But if you increase your heart rate without associated physical activity, i.e. by taking a drug like nicotine or alcohol, the opposite happens because the heart's pumping faster, but the muscles aren't using the oxygen or anything, so it actually reverses.
Yeah.
So that's the long-term effect of it, which is why there's a massive correlation between drinking and heart attacks, cardiovascular disease. It's really bad for you.
But what I meant was not like exercising while drunk. I mean, like I'm a drinker, but I do lots of exercise, so I kind of offset it.
So I'm talking, so that elevated heart rate and blood pressure hangs around for about 24 hours afterwards.
Right,
so
okay.
going back to what you were saying before about exercising
the next day to get rid of it is bad.
Yeah, it's not good for you. It's putting you, so your heart rate's already accelerated due to all the stimulants, and then you're exercising on top of it. So
you do feel better after it, though.
You will do, because exercise releases endorphins and gets the oxygen pumping. But the fact of the matter is, well, I won't speak for anyone else, but my experience is waking up with a hangover and doing exercise would make you feel better. But waking up without a hangover and doing exercise, and you feel absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about, like, you know, alcohol as a disease? Would you say it's a disease? No.
No, I don't tend to. I think the problem when people talk about alcoholism as a disease, they're almost, a lot of the time it's like a genetic thing, and you can avoid it if if your genes are okay. You cannot become addicted to it, but of course you can, because, like I said, every human being, their body reacts to alcohol by countering it. Their brain counters it by putting stimulants in, and as it wears off, it leaves that unpleasant feeling which another drink will remove.
Yeah.
So that basic physiology is there for everyone.
Yeah.
Now, there might be nuances between different genetic makeup, which makes it more accelerated or worse or whatever, which makes, maybe the risk factors are greater of becoming alcoholic, but the potential is there for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I always found that a bit bizarre that, alcoholism is a disease.
Yeah,
It's an addiction. And I think... I think what's difficult about it, just going back to this sort of social narrative, again, sort of going back to my son when he was going, you've got to admit it was fun, it is fun. And I'm like, there's a massive piece, isn't there, missing in education, because it's totally acceptable for me to turn around and go, don't have cocaine. Do you know what I mean? And it's totally acceptable to go, well, that's not clever, smoking cigarettes, but I can't say it like around alcohol, because it's seen to either demonize it, and then the teenager wants it more, or that I'm not being reasonable, they're going to drink, so make it safe, let them drink at home, all this sort of stuff. So how do we change this?
It's really difficult, and for me, it's always been about just giving people information.
Yeah.
You cannot make decisions for people, but you can give them information and let them make their decisions. And like I said earlier, to make a good decision, you need the information. And
so
then
would you
with
sit
that
your
information,
kids down, like as teenagers, when they're
absolutely,
teenagers, and go, this
just
is what
explain
I know.
it. And
it's up to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whether that works or not, I don't know, but that would be my intention. Yeah.
What about the links with depression and alcohol?
So,
what are the links? And if there are links with alcohol and depression, why isn't this the first port of call? Why aren't our doctors saying, okay, you need to knock alcohol on the head first?
Yeah, so there's a few points to mention there. So the link between alcohol and depression, it's always a bit of a chicken and egg thing. And for years, people, if you look at heavy drinkers, alcoholics, huge rates of depression. So the question is it the depression that causes the drinking, or is it the drinking that causes depression? And I think where we are now with it is it's both. Okay, so you're taking quite a powerful chemical that's leaving you very anxious, and it's demolishing your ability to go into REM sleep, which has a massive impact on your mental health and causes depression.
Right.
But of course, the other side is alcohol is a sedative. So if you're happy and everything's fine and you have a drink, it will have probably quite a minor effect on you. But if you're really unhappy because of depression or even trauma or anything like that, that drink, by sedating that, is going to feel a lot more necessary. So I think it works both ways. People who drink heavily are likely to become depressed because of the effect it has, but also people with depression are more likely to find themselves drinking heavily because, like I say, if you don't feel good for whatever reason, a sedative will help. And what's the most widely available sedative that we can get our hands on without a prescription?
Yeah.
Just walk into a shop and buy as much as you like. It's alcohol.
Do you think people know it's a sedative? Like if I said to someone at a party, "Oh, that's a sedative," would they just go, "Oh, stop"?
Because it is a sedative, but you also have, it makes you merry and silly. So how?
Yeah, so this is one of the interesting things about it. It's a sedative, but it seems to have a stimulating effect on people. Now, this is one of the things I think it's important to emphasise. It isn't a stimulant. It absolutely isn't. It is a sedative. It can affect us in such a way to make us feel more lively.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of evidence of how it affects us. Because I used to notice this with my kids, but when they were younger, they'd be ill and they were really sluggish and they were really tired, and you'd give them some Calpol. And as soon as it kicked in, they'd be jumping around going berserk.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And so if you wake up and you're anxious and you haven't slept properly and you're not feeling too good, by taking alcohol and sedating it, you're coming back to normal. So it can feel like it's having a stimulant effect in the same way that if you were very ill and you had a load of paracetamol or codeine or something and felt better, you'd feel more alert and more awake. And of course, the other thing, I suppose, is we often drink in social situations, which are by their nature lively. So, if you're feeling a bit nervous in a social situation, a bit quiet, you have a drink and it relaxes you, you're going to become more lively and more buoyant. So it absolutely isn't a stimulant, but it can, if that makes sense, it can have a sort of a stimulating effect on us on occasion.
Because why do you go so crazy on drink if it's a sedative? But I suppose, I think what you're saying is you're in a social situation anyway.
Yeah.
You're relaxed.
Because don't you say in your book that it's a unique drug?
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the reasons for that is we take it in happy situations. When we start drinking, we drink in social situations. And I think that's one of the things that muddles it up in people's minds. And certainly for me, sitting down drinking on your own is very different to drinking with friends in a happy situation. Because when you're drinking in a social situation, the feel good that we associate with the alcohol is actually the endorphins.
Right.
So a very, very interesting experiment is for people to sit on their own with no TV, no music, no company, and drink what they would normally drink. And it's a very, very different experience.
Sounds
than
bleak.
So is that to expose for you to realise that it is
what
just
it's actually
a
doing
sedative?
to you?
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't
there.
make you feel good. It's the situation you're in, socialising, that makes you feel good. If you just sit on your own and drink alcohol, it's not a particularly nice feeling.
So it's not like heroin, like you take,
You just feel good. Yeah, absolutely.
Knocks you out.
Yeah.
And so that's a direct effect.
Yeah, so opioids actually create or make you release endorphins. So you can be sat absolutely on your own and take an opioid and actually feel really good. Because alcohol doesn't work that way. It's just purely sedative.
So when you got to a stage of sort of drinking by yourself, like, how did you get to that stage where you were like, I just want to drink? Was it driven by anxiety? Were you always anxious, or do you think the alcohol created it?
So I think...
Are you okay to talk about
this? No, absolutely. Absolutely glad to. So I think the problem is, going back to the physiological side of it, you have a drink, it wears off with that feeling of anxiety, so you want another drink.
Yeah.
And of course, as you're doing that, you're becoming increasingly intoxicated. So, I might go out for the evening, for example, at a work function, and I'd be drinking and I'd want to keep drinking, but I kind of realised I was getting a bit drunk.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so I, get off home or something with the intention of going to bed, and then I think, I'll just grab a bottle of wine and have a glass before I go to bed, and end up just sitting there drinking.
Right,
so it wasn't like a deliberate thing, but it kind of started to morph more and more like that. And I think, going back to what I was talking about before, about the sedating effect or the relaxing effect and the intoxicating effect, those two things run their course at different times. Okay, so and the more you drink, the more disparity there is between the two. So just to sort of highlight that with an example, when I was drinking towards the end, when I was drinking quite heavily, I would have a drink and the intoxicating effect would kick in, and so would the relaxing effect. So I'd be one drink intoxicated and one drink relaxed. Now, the relaxation would wear off very quickly, but the intoxication wouldn't. So I'd have another drink because I'd be starting to feel anxious. I'd want another drink. So I'd have another one. And then I'd still be one drink relaxed, but I'd be two drinks intoxicated.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
and as you drink, chasing that feeling of relaxation, you're becoming more and more intoxicated. So I don't think I did this consciously, but I just wanted to feel good. I just wanted to sit and drink and not have to worry about, am I really drunk? People are watching me.
Yeah.
So the way you wanted to do that relaxation without looking like an idiot.
Sit down in front of the TV on my own and just drink.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So in that case, if that is actually what alcohol is doing, I suppose, why aren't there more alcoholics? Because...
But maybe they are, but they don't see themselves as that. So
I suppose the question is, what is the percentage of people, I don't know if you know the answer to this, I think it'd be an interesting answer to find out, that can just have one drink a week? Or, you know, people say, I can take it or leave it. How many people can actually take it or leave it?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure anyone's looked into it. But so for me, the line that we cross, so I've explained how you have an alcoholic drink and it wears off leaving an unpleasant feeling that needs another drink to relieve it. Okay. So when you have a drink, it wears off and leaves this unpleasant feeling. But there's lots of reasons in life why we might feel unpleasant. You know, you might have a bad day at work or an argument with your partner or bills you can't pay. You might just not be feeling good. Most of the time when we don't feel good, we just get on with it. Okay. But if you're drinking regularly, the subconscious starts to work out that there's a particular feeling that kicks in that only another drink will remedy. Mm-hmm. So it's a learning process. So if you only ever have one drink once a week, it will wear off leaving an unpleasant feeling and you probably won't even notice it. You'll just get on with life. But if you have a drink and then leave it a few minutes and have another one, and you do that regularly, over the space of weeks, months and years, your subconscious will start to realise that there's an unpleasant feeling and I want a drink to get rid of it. And that starts that mental craving, that kind of obsession. So for me, that's the line between take it or leave it and it creating the need for the next drink. It's a learning process. And the more you drink and the more heavily you drink, the more likely you are to make that link in the subconscious. And when you get there, you can't ever backtrack from it because it's learned behaviour, and what you've learned cannot be unlearned.
Yeah.
You know,
so you've almost programmed
exactly.
yourself. This equals this. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, because I think you say in the book as well, like with Loretta and I, like I always found it easier. Well, in the end, I found it much, much easier to stop drinking than to try and drink less. Because it was that constant mental craving, or like, I'll only drink this Wednesday and Sundays or whatever, and then I'd change the rules if I had a particularly, bad week. I'd be like, oh, sod it, I'm just going to drink on a Thursday. So it was always much easier, much freeing once I'd really made the decision that I wasn't going to drink. And I didn't do it like, that's it, I'm never going to drink again. I just stopped for a month and I felt so good that we continued.
Yeah.
And obviously I had health issues as well. So what was the powerful mind shift in you? How did you get to this point? So it wasn't AA, it wasn't, you just were
So for me, it was a mix of understanding what it was doing and what it wasn't doing, and actually how much better off I'd be without it. And I think that was the thing that solidified it to me. When I made the link between drinking and it making me want the next drink, and drinking and anxiety, and drinking and it ruining my sleep and my ability to exercise, I knew that within a few days, my brain chemistry would get back to normal. I'd be sleeping better. I could exercise and feel really good. So I had a very deeply held belief that was true, that within a few days, I would start to feel so much better. And that is the thing that switched in my mind. And I think that's the key point, because if you can get to the point where you know you're not going to drink again, you can avoid craving, because
Yeah, well, I don't have
craving
any
is that
cravings,
should
yeah.
I, shouldn't I,
Yeah,
can I,
yeah.
can't I. But if you're not going to do it, you don't get into that mental spiral. You just do not drink. And that's why a lot of people, it's easier just to stop, because you make one decision, I'm never going to drink again, and that's it. But it is difficult to get into that mindset, because it has to be definite, and it's really hard for some people to know for a fact they're never going to drink again.
So once you learnt this stuff, it was like you can't unknow it. Was there part of you going, well, even though I know it, I still want to drink?
No, because so one of the things I used to do, and this wasn't even a deliberate thing, it wasn't until a few years afterwards that I realised what a useful tool it was. But so I'd stop drinking, and say we'd be on holiday and we'd go to the pool and there'd be people drinking there, and I'd think to myself, I'd like a drink, and then I'd think, right, stop. What will happen if you have that drink? You'll feel a bit sedated, a bit kind of, and then it will wear off and you want another one. You'll be waking up at 3, 4 in the morning feeling rubbish. And I did that every time I wanted a drink. I kind of played it through, and I think I almost retrained my brain.
Right.
So instead of looking at an alcoholic drink and thinking, wow, that would be fun, I looked at it and saw myself waking up at 3 in the morning feeling awful. So it was almost like aversion therapy.
Yeah.
Or visualization.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we did the same, but we weren't aware of it.
No,
weren't aware
yeah.
of it, but I always say, like, I went to Napa Valley with my ex-husband, and, I loved wine and the ritual and the ceremony of wine. And that's why it's so inviting, isn't it? It's just the whole thing, the branding, all of it. And so I loved to drink. I thought I loved drink until I stopped drinking. So now when I looked at a glass of red wine before, I'd be like, oh, that looks lovely, and smelling it. But now I literally see anxiety in a glass. If I see someone with a really big, large red glass of wine, like topped up to the top, I literally see a headache.
Yeah.
And that's just happened naturally.
Sort of brainwashing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to brain. It just happened. I suppose a bit similar, but I just didn't have a big moment of going, I've really got to stop drinking. It was driven by I've got an autoimmune disease. Even the doctor said it's okay to drink. I mean, I asked them, this can't be good for me, because I'm not that well anyway, so I'm feeling a bit low. And now I'm having a drink in the evening to kind of, make myself feel better. And then the next day I'm even worse. Because you talk about in your book as well about there was a whole science bit about when you're not feeling very well, you're naturally a bit depressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how is that linked to the alcohol? So, because I related to that, because I know that when I was sick, I was quite low and really not motivated. How does that link with when you're feeling low that you then go back to drinking? Is it when it wears off, you've got the energy to go back and think, oh, I'm going to drink again now?
Yeah. So there's a few parts to that. One of them I mentioned before, like if it's the next day and you're feeling tired, you haven't slept properly, and there's that anxiety, that alcohol will anaesthetize it, and it will fill that hole and get rid of that anxiety, so make you feel better and more lively.
Yeah.
But what I used to find was I'd come out the other side of drinking feeling hungover, so awful.
Yeah.
And everything, and I think this is terrible, I can't keep doing this, what on earth am I doing? But within a few days, brain chemistry gets back to normal, I'm sleeping better, and just my entire outlook would change.
Yeah.
I'd just feel more positive and happier. But that would also apply to my drinking. So I'd look back on it and think, it wasn't that bad. It was all right. It's fun having a drink. So I'd kind of then get to Friday and I'd get straight back into it. Before I knew it, it was Sunday, Monday morning again. And I was thinking,
that same cycle.
Have I done it again?
Yeah. I remember thinking that sort of same cycle of, like, you said you weren't going to drink this week. That little voice.
Yeah.
You said you weren't going to drink and you have drank again.
It gets really boring, doesn't it? Doing
so
the same
boring.
thing
Over and
over again.
Yeah.
And what do you think the future of alcohol is? What does it look like? Are we all going to see the light? Or...
I think it's definitely changing.
Yeah.
So when I wrote Alcohol Explained, it was about 10 years ago now, I think. And it was very different.
Yeah.
There's definitely been a sober revolution. And to my mind, the biggest change is 10 years ago, it was, am I alcoholic? If the answer is yes, I have to quit and be miserable. If the answer is no, I can carry on, but I just need to try and control it a bit. But drinking's great. Whereas nowadays, there's a big question mark over that. Is drinking great? And actually, there's a huge number of people that are stopping, not because they're alcoholic or have got any kind of alcohol dependency, but just as a healthy lifestyle change, in the same way people are giving up meat and processed food just purely because they feel better. And I think that's the big change. I think the generation coming up now are drinking less and less. I think the truth will out. So I think that whole mystique, and you were talking about it, you know, the lovely bottles of wine, it's a carcinogenic drug. And I think you can't get away from that. And more people are realising it. And more importantly, people are realising that they can have a happy life without alcohol. So it's definitely changing. I sometimes think of it as, you know, like 50 years behind smoking. So the way smoking's kind of been pushed out more and more.
Well, that's what I said to my son. It was last night we were talking about it. I said, I know you probably think I'm unusual, but the truth will come out, and it's coming out. We're a little bit ahead of the curve, as in terms of being completely teetotal, but it's coming out, and it is just as bad as cigarettes. It's a carcinogenic. I think Canada has kind of named it as a carcinogenic.
The World Health Organisation, their medical branch, they classify carcinogens according to different categories. It's a class 1 carcinogen, same as cigarette smoking and asbestos and radiation.
So why isn't there warning labels on bottles of wine? I mean, that has to be the next step.
Yeah,
I think they have done it.
Yeah, they will start to. I think
they will get there.
Yeah,
it's on the cards, but it's a slow process, and it's so deeply ingrained in our society. We are a nation of drinkers,
and the people that are making the laws, they're all drinkers, and there's bars in Parliament, isn't there? And it's
so
ingrained.
Historic as well. It's such a difficult thing to change. It is getting there, but it's just taking time. I mean, for me, I try not to get too concerned about that and kind of concentrate on myself. And like I say, giving information to people for them to make their own decisions on it.
So when you stopped drinking, were people around you supportive? They weren't like, oh, have a drink?
There was a lot of that. It's better these days, but there was quite a lot of it, and you still do come across it occasionally. So it's definitely... I think people are more comfortable if you're drinking, because if they're getting drunk, the last thing they want is someone sober judging them.
No, absolutely. I'd just like to just finally, really, if anyone's listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm a little bit concerned about my own drinking, what advice would you give them? Well, obviously go and read your book, because that is absolutely a no-brainer. It really, Alcohol Explained, it really does. Once you know it, you can't unknow it, basically. Any other advice?
I would say to people to get curious. That's the key thing, is to start really trying to get under the skin of it. Because I think for me, that's what provided me with the key to stopping. It was understanding it, and above all, understanding, like I say, that genuine belief that life would be better when I quit and got through that initial period. So I would say to people to get curious and don't take anything for granted. Because it's very easy to just sit back and say, I feel good when I have a drink. But actually start to think about why you feel good. Is it the taste? Is it the effect? And what is this great effect that's worth writing off days hungover for? And start to really... like I say, get under the skin of it.
So it's really interesting because a lot of people turn around, I don't know if they say it to you, but they say, you know, you're so disciplined for not drinking. And I think it's a real oxymoron, because actually what it's given me is actually freedom. I was so stuck when I was drinking, because I was constantly fighting with myself about drinking too much, or deciding whether to drink, or going to a wedding and drinking too much. And now all of a sudden, all of that is taken away, and I feel such freedom. And I also feel this relief. Whenever I go anywhere, I go, thank God I don't drink. It's so weird.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for me, if it came down to discipline and resisting temptation, I would have ended up drinking again. So for me, seeing it for what it is and not wanting it it's not about discipline. I don't want it.
Yes,
So I don't
yeah.
have to
to
exercise
try.
willpower or anything. It's just I'm not interested in it. So you remove that entire level of having to resist it because you just don't want it.
And how do you find social situations now? You're so used to not drinking.
I'm fine with them. It's like I say, it's been 10 years. I'm
Yeah.
not very good in social situations anyway. But of course, doing what I do, I go to a lot of sober events, and that's always better.
Yeah.
Because I do find if I'm going to an event where people are drinking, I usually put the time limit about 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because it starts to get a bit trying.
Yeah.
People start to get a bit close and repeat themselves, and it gets wearing. So
it's bizarre, isn't it? Because, you know, as you said, like alcohol is a drug and everybody drinks, and it's like sort of a nation of like drug addicts, really. That's kind of encouraged. It's really, really sad. I did say this to my son last night as well. And I said to him, what makes me sad is that I see you and your friends, and he's very sporty and he really knows how to make himself happy. And I said, when I gave up drink, I had those same feelings of being happy, like from a kid, came back for me.
genuine happiness.
Of like just having a laugh because I can I don't need that drink to have a laugh. And I said, what's really sad is that you know, I went from a child that was really kind of vibrant and knew how to have a laugh to someone that had to kind of basically sedate myself, you know, and I just don't want that for you. And you know, we went on a big sort of football trip, and you know, all the kids are having a great time, like running around the hotel, like just the best time. And I was sort of in the bar feeling really uncomfortable because everybody drank on this trip and I didn't really know anyone either. And even my son was like, Mum, why don't you just have a drink and like join in?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is madness, you know. And I said, look, I'm not going to spoil your fun. You run about, but I'm going to go to bed early and just read my book. But, you know, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. But what I just thought, I just seen these two images of like the kids just having a great time mucking about, and then like all the adults having to drink, basically carcinogenic, that's going to like give them loads of anxiety. And I just felt deep sadness, and I just thought, but it's not their fault. We've been brought up to do this.
Brought up into it. I've had this conversation with people a few times where, you know, they've stopped drinking, they're happy to have stopped drinking, but they say, I had some really good times drinking. And then you can never take that away. It was really good. But I say to them, yeah, but if you'd never drunk, you would have had good times.
Yeah.
You know, half the 8 billion people in the world, half of them don't drink alcohol, roughly. They have good times. You know, when you look back over your youth, hopefully you'll remember some good times. And it's just because we drink, they were drinking times. But for people who didn't drink, they had good times without alcohol.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We probably don't have that much time for any more questions, but absolutely fascinating hour just listening to you and how you break it down. And you're a really brilliant communicator. So I'm so glad that you've got that book out into the world, because it's complex, but you actually communicate in such a simple way people can grasp it. So huge, massive thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you've enjoyed the episode, don't forget to press like, subscribe, whatever. I don't really know. I know I need to beg you, that's all. Thank you. You've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you enjoyed the show, please follow us, share, spread the word. It will really help. And obviously, if you didn't like it, then keep stum. We're single mums.
If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. Please do drop us an email at thegavinsisters@gmail.com.